Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the channel. If you're liking the content so far, consider subscribing to it. I'll be posting more content. Right now, we're still in the Skand Gumanig Vizar, or also the Doubt Dispelling Exposition. So what we're going to go ahead and do is just get into the next chapter, which is the 11th chapter. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. Boom. Let's get it. All right, so pretty strong language in the last chapter. Well, let's go ahead and continue here. He says, about the inconsistency of their discourses from their canonical scriptures. It is said that nothing falls from a tree and no voice arises in a land, nor two birds strive together unless by the command of the Father. There he's quoting, I believe, Matthew 10:23. Some versions say uh, not a sparrow would fall from the sky without the Father's will, something like that. So let's continue here. He says, this statement demonstrates that there is one principle and everything is by his will. So that was the premise, right? So our premise was these these views, these religions, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, have this at the root that there is one principle and everything is by his will. And that's what we're critiquing here. So let's continue here. He says, then for what purpose did he fashion or send the Messiah, who is his son? And which way did he fail to show, and now the Son should show it? If all be by his will and never were unsuccessful, the same explanation implies this, that the Jews slew his son, Messiah, through the will of the Father. And the New Testament even alludes to that they were gathered together whatever God's hand predestined to occur. And that's in the book of Acts. So if you're interested in that, but he's showing the inconsistency. And here we go. He says, again, it says inconsistently about the free will of the individuals. Or the bishop states, he has created man with free will. What's he relating to? Overseer, I prefer to read persons, individuals. So, thus, the fault and sin which mankind commit are the effects of the freedom of will. He himself has given the freedom of will to man. Then it ought to consider him as a sinner who is the original cause of sin. If man, by their free will, commits sin and crime, and not through the will of God, then the sin and crime which by nature proceed from the lion, serpent, wolf, scorpion, and other stinging and slaying monsters, where is the freedom of will, and whose sin is it? Wow, powerful point saying, if man by their free will commits sin and crime, and not through the will of God, then the sin and crime which by nature proceed from the lion, the serpent, the wolf, where is the freedom of will, and whose sin is it? It's either God's will or man's will. It's saying man's sin is his own will, right? And where is the freedom of will? And whose sin is it? Besides, the deadly poison which is in the aconite and other species of plants, the cause of which is not owing to free will, what is its principle? Now notice he's going back to things that are created. Interesting point. Saying the deadly poison in different species of plants, it's not their free will. They are made that way or created that way. He says, what is its principle? It's not owing to free will. He's already, he is already um, dialing in on what he expects them to say. Look at this. He says, if they state that these poisons are useful and necessary in many medicines which expel the disease of the sick, then you should ask them, who has created the disease itself and its noxious effect? And what is its necessity that afterwards he created and needed the medicine of the deadly poison? Or would not it be more proper if he had created an elixir for removing that disease than a medicine of poison? So he's saying that bishop is relating to Saint Ephraim and Manny Marcion. Uh, so Saint Ephraim the Syrian, uh, fourth century, I want to say. So he says he has created man with free will. So he's saying, okay, whose sin is it? And then why does the aconite have poison in it? And was that God's will, right? This also, from what origin is the name noxiousness, whose antonym, usefulness, will be necessary? Upon this chapter, it is possible to speak abundantly. I contented myself to explain succinctly. So he's not going super in depth. He's just showing, look, right here it's inconsistent. Okay? Right here it's inconsistent. It's inconsistent here because it's all God's will, and then man has free will, so that's inconsistent. Saying, okay, where does the poison come from? Where? All right. Now this is interesting. I found this chapter interesting because he says, from the discourses of their authority or religious authority, Paul, which are in contradiction with their proper principles. Now, when you talk to people, just modernly, you'll have people who will say that Paul contradicted Jesus, right? Paul's letters are dated earlier than the Gospels. And they're saying that Paul contradicted Jesus in different ways. And that's what this writer is referring to. Farokh Mandar or something like that. Mandar Farokh. This is a 9th century text as a defense of Zoroastrianism against these other religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, namely the one divine principle, that there is one divine principle that all good and all evil come from. Let's get into the chapter. They say this also, the good that I desire I do not do, but the evil which I do not desire I do. It is no more I that do it, but sin which dwells in me. For I see it quarreling against me day and night. It is no more I that do it, but sin which dwells in me. For I see it quarreling against me day and night. Obviously, if you're familiar with the New Testament, this is Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 7. And you can read the whole thing there, verses 19 through 23. It says, again, they say from the discourse of Messiah, God is the principle of light and goodness. In him are no evil and darkness at all. And that's John's first letter. This is 1 John chapter 1, verse 5. God is light and in him is no darkness at all. This also. So you see how he's comparing and contrasting. They're saying that there's this one principle, and there's no darkness in him. Okay, so then where is the separation? Let's continue. This also, just as a shepherd who provides protection for 100 sheep, if the wolves carry off one of them, he goes after that one which the wolves carried off, until he leads it back to the flock and leaves the 99 in the wilderness. Obviously, this is Matthew chapter 18, and it's the discourse where the Messiah says that, Jesus Christ says that he goes after the one and leaves the 99. So I came to lead the misled, not the righteous, because those who are righteous have no need to be brought into the right way. And that is going to be Matthew 9:12. When Jesus heard it, he said to them, those who are healthy have no need for a physician, but those who are sick. But you go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. For I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. So notice the different translations, especially from uh, from a Middle Persian to English, says, lead the misled, not the righteous. But those who are righteous have no need to be brought into the right way. If the principle be one, so back to the main premise. If the principle be one and his will be wholly fulfilled, then no one shall be astray and misled. Even the wolf's slaying of the sheep is likewise his will, and he himself created the wolf too. So he's just going straight to the principle. That is powerful. He's saying if everything is God's will, then someone going astray is God's will. So they are not going astray. And someone misled is God's will. And God even made the wolf and the slaying of the sheep. It's all his will. The extremely inconsistent discourse of Messiah may appear in the case of the two principles. As they say from the same discourse of Messiah, there is another principle, an enemy of my Father. I am the benevolent God. And then 5, that's another principle is the prince of this world. John 12:31. Now is the judgment of the world. Now the prince of this world will be cast out, or the devil. The enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. Satan is also called the prince of the power of the air in Ephesians 2:2. So he's saying that their views are contradictory because even the Messiah speaks of two principles, not one principle. He says, there is another principle, an enemy of my Father. Interesting. Let's continue here. See, right where look at what he says. He says, it is manifest from this discourse that he, the Messiah, separates and distinguishes his own Father from that enemy. See that? So he's saying Jesus separates and distinguishes his own Father from that enemy, the one who sows the wheat, the tares, the one who is the enemy of the Father. This also, God has fashioned or sent me for truth, and through truth, the evildoer, evil spirit, came to me to transgress the law, and he desired to deceive me in many ways. Matthew 4:1-11, that Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. Well, if the principle be one, and there be no contrary to it. So let's take the premise. Let's say, okay, all good and evil, everything comes from God. It's all God's will. Boom. Well, if the principle be one, and there be no contrary to it, why then was the evil spirit so powerful that he dared to make wander the Son of God? If God himself created that evil doer, then that making wander, temptation, was knowingly through the will of God himself. And he himself made wander was the tempter of the Son. See that? Powerful stuff. This also, it says that when the Jews disputed against him, he said to the Jews, ye are from beneath, and I am from above. You are from this world. I am not of this world. This also he said, I know that you are Abraham's seed, who was homicide from before. You desire to kill me. I do that which I have seen with my father. You do that which you have seen with your father. Now I'm I'm shocked at the the way in which he understands these words. Coming from a ninth century uh, Iranian Zoroastrian, not a Western European view, but listen to what he says and what he actually gets from this, what he's taking away from this here. This is interesting. It says, this also, if God be your father, you would be my friend, for I have proceeded forth from God. Neither have I come of my own desire. He has fashioned, sent me as a benevolent God. Then why do you not bear my word? Because you are from the evildoer, you cannot bear it, and the will of your father you will do. He was not in the truth, whatever he spoke a lie. For you are a liar, you and your father. I that tell the truth, you believe me not. He who is of God hears God's words, but you do not hear my words because you are not of God. By all these words, it is demonstrated that there are two principles. One that fashioned or sent me, right? And sent me one that fashioned the Jews. He called this second principle the evildoer and not the benefactor. You see that? So he's saying, you guys reject the divine principle, but it's in the text itself. Your stuff is inconsistent, and this is why. And he's showing it from the text, which is always great to do. Now let's continue. He says, this also he said, a tree of good cannot bring forth the fruit of evil, neither can a tree of evil bring forth the fruit of good. This also, he either makes the whole tree with fruit of good, or makes the whole tree with fruit of evil. For every tree is known by its own fruit, either of good or of evil. He said the whole tree, and not half the tree. How is it convenient that half of a tree be light and half dark, half good and half evil, half veracity and half mendacity? If these two contend with each other, they cannot be one tree. He also called the Jews the hill serpent Jew, and that looks like translated generation of vipers, serpents, generation of vipers. And he said that, how can you do good when you are Jewish evildoers? And looks Matthew 12:34. You offspring of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Interesting. And he did not call his own father the evildoer. This also he says that every tree which the Father has not sown should be hewn down and be cast into the fire. It's Matthew 3:10. Even now the axe lies at the root of the trees. Therefore every tree that doesn't bring forth good fruit is cut down and cast into the fire. Matthew 15:13. But he answered, every plant which my heavenly Father didn't plant will be uprooted. So he's going into the text and showing from the text two divine principles. See that? Now let's keep going here. He says, it may be known from this saying that there is a tree which the Father has not sown, and it should be hewn down and cast away. Furthermore, I came unto my own, and my own received me not. It may be known from this word that what is his own and what is not his own are two principles. This also it says that our Father that are in heaven, may your kingdom come. May your will be done in earth as in heaven. Give us daily bread, and do not bring us to temptation. It is known from this saying that his will is not pure on earth as in heaven. This also, the temptation of mankind is not out of God. So let's break this down a little bit. Saying the letter from James 1:13 through 14. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God. For God can't be tempted by evil, and he himself tempts no one. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own lust and enticed. The temptation of mankind is not out of God, meaning it's not from God, God's will, basically. This also, he initially said that I have not come to disturb the law of Moses, but I have come to make it more complete. Oh, you see, that's Matthew 5. Don't think that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I didn't come to destroy, but to fulfill. And depending on who you talk to, you'll hear so many different views of that. So many. But notice, ninth century text from a Zoroastrian reading this stuff. This is the conclusion he's coming to. Let's hear what he says. He says, nevertheless, all his words and commands were inconsistent with the ordinances and laws of Moses and disturbed these laws. I mean, think about it. In one verse, he says, "I have not come to disturb the law of Moses, but I have come to make it more complete." Right? And he says, in another verse, is not here, but he says, "I tell you the truth, um, not one jot or tittle will pass from the law. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my law will never, but God's law will never pass away." Right? So he is very keen on the Torah, but his words and commands were inconsistent with the ordinances and laws of Moses and disturbed these laws. Them not eating, them not keeping the Sabbath, other stuff. He says on this chapter, as far as here is complete. Now, if you want to continue in the book, he goes into Manichaeism, which pretty much has died out, as far as I know. I don't know if there's any Manichaeans. If any Manichaeans are watching, please post the script. But in his day, post, subscribe, comment. In his day, Manichaeanism was a religion that people were drawn to. So if you want to continue in the book, this is where I stop with this book. Um, for the point that I wanted to make in regard to Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, that this critique is on the one divine principle, and just being able to think differently, to show different views, helps us wrestle with and struggle with our own ideas and what we should believe or shouldn't believe. I think that's important to get that information out there. You know, if truth matters, then truth is not afraid of contest, right? Truth should prevail in any contest. So I think that's why I'm comfortable with putting stuff like this out there so that, it's not to get you to doubt. I'm not trying to make people doubt or make people change their religion or anything like that. I'm trying to get people to think critically, hear an argument, hold the argument, and then try to still man it, try to say, okay, this is it. This is where this falls short, right? I think this author did a really good job of showing inconsistencies of, in one area, it says everything is done by God's will, God's hand. Another area, it says that this was an enemy that did it. Um, and just showing how illogical it is. I find that amazing. And I'm glad I came across this. Once again, I'm going to post this website in the comments. You can learn more about Zoroastrianism. And I appreciate y'all for watching. If you have any comments or questions, put them in the comments section and let's get a conversation going. Appreciate it, guys. You guys take care.